Hello and welcome to Rethinking Humanity. I'm Lacey Delane,
Hi, I'm Sonia Lorea.
and we are live coming at you here from Atlanta, Georgia. We really wanted to open up a conversation tonight about a very important documentary that has just come out called The Social Dilemma. And Sonia is going to tell you a little bit more about that in just a second. But we want to welcome you and we want to ask you and encourage you to participate. We want to respond to your comments and questions and thoughts so that it will enrich our conversation. And we have a focus segment of just reading what comments that you guys have shared with us, as well as seeing them throughout the broadcast. Also, we have two special guests, Tyreen and Kateri Ransom, we are so excited to have, just two more brilliant minds to hear from on this topic. So we're really excited. We hope that you guys enjoy the broadcast. So Sonia, tell us about this documentary.
Okay, guys, this is a great documentary that I recommend everyone watch, whether you are on social media or not. It's on Netflix, and as Lacey said, it's called Social Dilemma. This is a documentary that has previous tech leaders from like Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, TikTok, Instagram. I'm sure many of you know these platforms and potentially use them. And they discuss the effect and impact that the social media is having on society as a whole, exactly how our attention is getting mined and how they are keeping our attention. So it's a very provocative film. Again, whether you're a user or not, I think these platforms affect all of us in society. So I highly, highly recommend you watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find that again on Netflix. And while we're here, before we get too deep into our conversation, I just want to say thank you to the folks who made that film. Tristan Harris and, the team of people who decided that they were going to do this. I can't imagine, how nervous that. I know there's a part in the documentary where he's going out on stage to talk about this, and the guy says, "How are you?" Remember that?
Says, "I'm nervous. I'm scared."
Yeah. So imagine how nervous he might have been, and they all might have been, in putting something like this out, but it's for the greater good. So we just want to say, on behalf of, the podcast, our listeners, ourselves, and really humanity, thank you for doing this.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, we'll say, the purpose. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because we really want to bring awareness to the issues that this documentary is highlighting, because we can see how beautifully it overlaps with a lot of the themes that we discuss on Rethinking Humanity, but also, because it's going to be beneficial to all of us to understand what these issues are and how social media and technology is affecting our lives. And if we can understand it, then we can also, which is the other purpose, talk about ways that we can adjust our lives to really accommodate really basically what our podcast is about, bringing about a better quality of life for ourselves, for humanity. And so, at the end, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about ways ways that we can adjust our lives and things that we can do differently to kind of help us adjust that. Anything else you'd add, Sonia, to that?
I would add, exactly what you're saying, Lacey, is having this conversation, right? Opening it up to basically everyone to discuss and think. There are ideas that maybe you and I haven't thought about, and different solutions or ways that we could actually still utilize some of these tools. But we see in this film, as we're going to get into, how deeply we are affected by it. Right. So the more people that we have in the conversation and the more knowledge, to me, knowledge is power. Yeah. Then potentially we can impact what's happening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to continue the conversation, bring awareness, further awareness as much as we can, and then find some ways that we can all counter the negative effects of this together. So Sonia, when did you watch the film? What were some of your first impressions
Wow.
of this thing?
I think just to full disclosure, guys and gals, Lacey calls me late one night and says, "Oh my God, you got to watch this film." And I'm thinking, "Oh no, I'll watch the film tomorrow." I start watching it. I can't stop watching it. So I did watch it late at night. It was my first go round. And I think I looked at it the next day, and I also reviewed a little bit today. So
yeah,
it's, you miss it. Like when you're watching it, sometimes you have to go back and go, "Wow, okay, I got that part. I got that part." But it gets you.
I'll throw in my story on seeing it. I saw Yang tweet about it twice, and I was like, okay, I'm probably going to go watch that. And people who know me well, I'm not a big movie person, as you all probably know, and Sonia, you definitely know, I love books. I like to try to take my downtime to read. And so I just think it's more productive. Now, that doesn't mean I don't watch stuff sometimes, but I'm just saying I just don't tend to go towards movies. And so when I heard him tweet about it twice, and then I had heard some other things, I'm like, all right, I got to watch this. And I invited some friends that I play soccer with to watch it with me. And it was funny because, I think they're like, yeah, this is stuff that we know. And so I don't know that they took it as seriously maybe as I do. And there's I'm not throwing any shade or anything. It's just, just different approaches. And so I watched it again and I was like, whoa, there's so much. There's so much there.
There's so much. Let me ask you a question before we get into it, Lacey. What social media do you use?
Wow, that's a great question. Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot since watching this documentary. So Twitter for sure. I started using Twitter because of really because of the Yang campaign, but mostly before politics. And then I use Instagram, and I have a Facebook, but I rarely am on Facebook. And then I use WhatsApp, and then I also use YouTube.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you?
I haven't done the Twitter. I didn't do Facebook ever, a little bit in a way long time ago. So mostly Instagram, Gmail, which they talk about on there.
Yeah.
And what was the
spend that much time to try to figure out what color email thing to do?
Exactly.
That's great.
So just a couple things. Definitely YouTube. Obviously, I've used YouTube, so that would be my extent.
I don't think I realized until watching this documentary too, how much YouTube counts as well.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So what stuck out to you? What are the things, I guess, the highlights for you when you saw this film?
There's so much to comment on. Obviously, that's why we're doing a long show on it. But this is what's kind of coming to mind right this second of all the things. Of all the things, is I woke up the other morning, the day after I watched it, and I was just thinking about what Jaron, I can't remember what his last name is, said Wikipedia. Jaron,
the one that said to delete all 6 of your social media accounts.
Yes, and he also wrote a book about that, by the way.
Yes.
So Jaron Lanier says in the film, he says, imagine Wikipedia. You have a Wikipedia page, and now when we go to Wikipedia, it's the same thing. If you go to that page and I go to that page, we're going to see the exact same thing. But he said, imagine if you go to the Wikipedia page and the information is different based on whoever's looking at it. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's basically what Facebook is. And that's basically how we're, all living our lives and deciding on what the truth is, what facts are. And I woke up the other morning and it was just sitting at the top of my mind. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is exactly how we're going about deciphering truth. That's the perfect example. One place that's supposed to give you facts about what the truth is, and it's not giving you that. It's giving you what it thinks you want to see.
You know what, also along the same lines, I thought that was fascinating is the part where they talk about Google. Like if you put climate change is, and depending on where you're at or where you live, it could be, it's a hoax, it's, ruining our planet. And I always assume something like Google, here's my naivete, would be like objective. You would get like a truthful answer, Yeah. And that's one of the things they discuss in the film is that it's not the truth. And I think that is huge. That kind of impacted me where these other avenues of social media that people are using, I'm thinking, oh yeah, Facebook, I know you can't like get caught up in all that. But I thought I was sort of above that. And now I'm seeing how much I'm influenced in that. And that they make that point, whether you are a user or not, we're all affected by these platforms and the power that the platforms have.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more, Sonia, about how whether you use it or not. And I would venture to say, well, definitely out of the two of us, you're less of a user than I am for sure. So,
I would say one of the things that you talked about was even news. So a lot of our information that we're getting, we're thinking that we're getting impartial information, or even if you're searching for something, if you're not into the whole social aspect where you're connecting with people, I think they discuss how even in political movements or in countries, I mean, you could go on to YouTube's a good example. They have, I think the gentleman who worked there at YouTube noticed that the algorithms, if you went to search, if you saw a conspiracy theory, you would keep getting more. You get 100 conspiracy theories.
Right.
So I'll have to tell you, and I think I'm pretty open-minded, that if I watched 100 YouTube videos of conspiracy theories, I would probably start thinking, there may be a conspiracy theory out there, because my brain is going to be subjected to that information.
Right. Right. And that reminds me of Tim Kendall from the film, he was the president of Pinterest. And he said, I was writing this shit and I fell prey to my own, I knew exactly what was going on behind the curtain. And he said, I would come home and I couldn't, I had to just escape to the pantry to do emails and Pinterest stuff. And that just shows you how addicting it is.
Right. It is. And that is another powerful point that they talk about, the addiction part, because they state that algorithms are not objective. They're optimized.
Yeah.
And they're looking for an outcome. And we know what the outcome is profit. And you and I talked a lot about that on Rethinking Humanity with some of our other podcasts about how capitalism, that's what drives us. And this is a perfect example. This film shows that.
Yeah.
And the other point that I thought was really cool, it said, we accept the reality with which we are, the reality of the world which we are presented. Oh my gosh, I was like, it's kind of just jarring that is, we're all in the matrix. That's what I was going to say. That's another point they make. So how do you get out of something that you don't even know you're really in? I would argue there's people don't even realize that they're in this matrix, and it's something that we need to address.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely look at my phone differently now. After watching that, I look at my phone and I go, do I really want to look at my phone? Or am I being driven to look at my phone? Because after all, the evidence that this film is suggesting is that we've been played, dude.
Yeah.
We have been played and we have become addicted to these machines, to these apps, to these sites. And they're showing us the things that they think we want to see to keep us coming back. Why?
Right.
Because they want to make money, right?
Yeah.
We're not even, really what it boils down to is we're being taken advantage of for profit.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
And again, I would bring up our podcast before, because when we're uncomfortable, lonely, or afraid, we go to a digital pacifier.
Oh my God. Yes. That was so powerful what Tristan Ayers said. We go to this digital, and then this is a theme that I have been reading about in Reclaiming Conversation. This is Sherry Turkle, and she talks about how in her studies with young people and their use of technology, how they are they're failing to develop empathy because of that exact thing. It's hard for them to be in a space where they can endure boredom or difficulty. And so that hinders their ability to like have a conversation in which they can learn that someone else might be hurting and they might need empathy, right. And it's a type of escapism and a way to just avoid dealing with difficult things. And hello, I don't know if anybody has noticed lately, but life is not all, flowers and candies and roses.
No.
Especially in 2020.
Absolutely. You know what I remember too, Lacey, is when you and I met, we both read that book, Tribe.
Yes.
And one of the things they talk about in this film is that, of course, we care about our tribe, and we've evolved to care about, that we need the affirmation from those around us, but we haven't evolved to actually get likes from 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they talk about.
Yeah.
So it's a whole nother level. I think the other thing that hit me is how the growth of the technology is exponentially. It's just way up here. So us as humans cannot keep up with this whole AI world that we're now living in.
Yeah. And then the pushback argument on that one is, well, we've adjusted to technology at every phase in the game. So we'll adjust to technology in this phase. It's okay. We'll figure it out. And then the response is what you just said. We've never seen anything grow at this exponential rate ever. I mean, I think he said it was 1 trillion times or something, how much it's grown. And it's like Tristan Harris says in the film, who's going to win? Our brains that are limited by our own human natures. Right. Or the supercomputer machine on the other side of the screen that's
they're going to win.
Super optimized to come on.
Right. And there's a scene in there where I think they're talking to a room full of, really highly intelligent geniuses. And they're making the point that, as you made earlier, even the people who are designing these systems don't have more control. They are still subject to the addiction and to repeating, to going back to that the app that they're using. They cannot stay away from that. And I think that really is powerful if you think about how we're limited as human beings.
Mm-hmm. And there is some ties here to, obviously, we'll talk about this, but to our humanity, to some things that Fromm says, and human nature. I think, one thing that's a good point to make is like, there is a set human nature that we all have as human beings. And there's only so much mentally and emotionally with technology, with other things as well, that our nature can handle without really like psychosis or, really like sickness, basically, is what it would boil down to.
Absolutely. Do you remember on this film, the former VP of growth in Facebook called, I'm going to see if I can pronounce his name, Polly Haptiva. Okay. He talks about how and I've always thought about this with the likes and how people are looking for that kind of affirmation, that it's a fake, brittle popularity that's short term and it leaves you vacant and empty before you did it. So it's a vicious cycle. What's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do? And so it's not truthful. It's not valuable, but we've got caught in the cycle of thinking that that's what we need, and therefore go back to it again. Addiction.
And I recall like there was pain in that guy's eyes as he was saying it. Like he said, that's really, really bad. And then, and he said, if you put that on a global scale, billions of people are doing that.
Oh yeah.
What does that look like? Over time. That's, that's scary,
It's scary. And the other thing that really impacted me, I think it was Tristan was talking about this. No. It was the guy, I'm forgetting his name now, the one that wrote the book about deleting social media. You said his name.
Jaron Lanier.
Yeah. He said what it is, it's a slight, gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior. And I was thinking how that's really powerful, because we think, what's the big deal? We'll just open this app, or we'll just look at this video. Mm-hmm. And it's this slight change in our behavior that we don't even see what's going on.
Here's an interesting way to think about it. Can you look back on your life, let's just say in the last 6 months or year, and think of how your behavior has changed because of your phone? Fuck no, you can't. You have no idea. I'm saying that because that's how gradual and slight it is. You know,
right.
It's incredible.
And I know you know this quote, "We are the product."
Yes.
That's another one that again ties into the capitalism.
Right. Absolutely. We're the product. I thought this quote was really good. This is from kind of early in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Tristan Harris. And he says, never before in history have 50 designers, 20 to 35-year-old white guys in California,
mm-hmm.
made decisions that would have an impact on 2 billion people. 2 billion people will have thoughts that they didn't intend to have, because a designer at Google said this is how notifications work.
Yeah.
On the screen that you wake up to every morning.
That was intense. Yeah. Yeah. They've psychologically figured out how to give us this dopamine hit that we keep coming back. Because they do talk about the persuasion, that they all have to learn how to persuade. It's amazing, like you said, that they would sit around and discuss what color Gmail needs to be.
Yes.
Right.
For hours and hours and hours.
Right. And just to keep narrowing the intelligence down,
mm-hmm.
to be able to obviously manipulate our decisions, which is all for the profit at all cost.
Yep. You know, I think too, like, think about this part of that quote. 50 designers,
mm-hmm.
20 to 35-year-old white guys. So we're talking about 50 people influencing 2 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And who are they? They're 20 to 35-year-old white guys. So how limited is their
vision?
Right. Yeah. Of what life is, what it consists of, what is important. I mean, a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old have probably two totally different things that they think are like the most important things in their life.
Right. And then we talk about gender, ethnicity, everything else that we're missing out on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the scariest thing for me about this whole thing is like gonna seeing like behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
This is about manipulation. This is about control. This is about profit. And this is about them changing our behavior. That's so scary.
It's so scary because it makes me think of the equivalent of the frog in the water. Mm-hmm. You know, they say you put a frog in the boiling water, but you could be in the water and then the water starts to boil. And so we don't even know what we're experiencing and how we're reacting to these platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And how deeply it's affecting all of society. And enough that, like you said, that they had the courage to make this documentary.
Yes, I love that. I think that there was something else I wrote down a quote, but where Tristan Harris is talking about how it goes. It's a behavior change process where it goes deep into your
brainstem. Yeah.
And you don't even know really that's
exactly
on. Talk about major manipulation and control.
Exactly. I mean, we are all kind of, like I said, how do you wake up from the matrix if you don't even know you're in the matrix?
There you go. There you go. Yeah. I mean, it's scary. Well, we are at a perfect stopping point to bring in our first guest, who is a close friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, and also was my partner in crime in screaming at the Democratic debates for Andrew Yang. And so I would, with no further ado, let's bring in the lovely, the wonderful Tyreen Pamstein.
Woo!
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, good. I've been enjoying your chat here in the green room, and yeah, no, this is fascinating subject. Major documentary that I agree everyone really needs to see. But so yeah, I'm enjoying your chat.
Nice, nice. Well, if the audience doesn't know, Tyreen is on the West Coast, so she's out in California, and so a little bit time difference for us. But yeah, how's life in Cali? I haven't seen you in person in a minute, girl.
Well, we have the fires going, but they're kind of at least calm for right now. I got to be out yesterday and take part with the basic income march. So that was the first thing I've kind of done, broke, my quarantine. So that was kind of nice. But I mean, life has really shifted. It's really different. I'm also homeschooling the boys. So that has been really interesting. So different than distance learning, where I'm actually in charge of what they're learning. So that's been tremendously different, but they're good. They're good. They're pretty good kids, are pretty, obedient, and I have some teacher advisor support, but life is very different. So that, I miss you.
Yes, I miss you too. We also were at the Basic Income March here in Atlanta.
Yay!
So that was good.
That was good to see. Good to see. There was a lot of participation everywhere, so it was good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, so you saw. When did you see this film, Tyreen?
I think I actually saw it. I happened to have some free time the night that Yang tweeted about it. And I'm like, oh, hey, look, slot for something here. And I did make it all the way through that night. And of course, then I had a hard time sleeping because I digested, everything you've seen and, how we've participated with social media. And I am totally the addict of my family. So I'm like, I could see all the behaviors and to kind of, like you said, like, open up the curtain and see what's behind there was pretty jarring. So, and I've encouraged others to watch it. And of course it's like, so what are you doing differently? And I don't have the perfect answer, for that. So I am, listening in to what some of the suggestions are, even to come out of here. Notifications have been off on my phone for over a year, but you'll still visit. It's still in your hand, and you'll go, oh, let's see what's going on in that bird app, and then 30 minutes, an hour of your life will be sucked away in nonsense. So yeah, and I'm kind of like Lacey. I blame Andrew Yang for this whole Twitter thing. So Yang, all your fault. 100% your fault. I was happy, not on the bird. But it's the fastest way to get information. So I was there primarily for that. And then seeing this film about how false information, fake information, spreads 6 times faster. And you can see that stuff that's, and stuff that's controversial, way more popular. So, I already knew. So I do my best to try not to give that kind of stuff oxygen, but you still, you'll still see it and you'll still take time to, redirect and get back on path. But, it was very eye-opening film.
Are your children on social media?
No. So it's actually one of the, I know. So that is one of the things that was loud and clear. Before this film, I'd read like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they're the tech titans, but they really forbid that tech use in their home. And so that really planted a seed in my head. And so this obviously solidified it, to have all of these giants and developers behind all the biggest, apps and social media that we use, to hear them, like you guys have already said, tell you how it's working, how it gets you addicted, how, again, it was the Pinterest guy, right? Who was like, say 1,000 different times, I'm going to leave my phone for 1,000 different days. And he couldn't do it. And I really did relate to him because, and then he said that he has 2 young children that need his attention, but here he is coming back from his work day and he still can't rip away from the phone, even though, I mean, he's, he understands and I'm sure he loves his children, but he can't unglue.
Right.
And so that one hit me, pretty hard. And so if the people who've actually been working behind the curtain and they've known this entire time what it's about, and they've had 1,000 days to try to quit, different times, we have no chance. We have no chance. So I think this is just the beginning of the conversation. I think that, as many people can get aware right now to at least know, and then, do what you can to minimize and whatnot. But, Sonia, to answer your question, like after I talked to my kids about, the documentary, and my husband too, they're fine. I'm the only
You're the one
in the house. Like, my husband doesn't do the social media. He's told me all along how ridiculous it is. And my kids have no desire. Like, they'll appear, but it's completely, mom controlled. And so I told them about it. And I said, yeah, I really think that you guys should just never get on social media, like even through high school. And they're like, yeah, that's fine with me. And what's funny is, bedtime comes and I have my, Mini Yang, my little one, Mom, I think it's time for me to take your phone away. You told me about that film.
Oh, really?
You need, yeah. So I'm getting policed in my home, which I actually totally invite. So it's interesting. So I'm less worried about them than me at the moment.
Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it, Tyreen, you're like the girl in the film who breaks the box to get her.
I told them about that part, and they're like, well, what happened to her? I'm like, she's probably getting grounded, but I think that was fictional. I'm not that bad, but it's there, it's like it is slot machine, it's always there. So I was telling Lacey, like, I love the time when I train and like I go to the the dojang and you put your phone away, it's gone. It's not appropriate to go be checking it out, and you have that full hour and a half of respite, peace of mind. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah, I want to jump in here because I've thought about this too. Like, the things that I look forward to the most in my day-to-day life are things where I don't have my phone. For example, when I'm at the gym or when I'm working out, my phone is in my purse and I'm not looking at it. If I'm at the soccer field, I'm not looking at my phone. If I'm working with kids, as a nanny, I'm in the moment and I'm present with the kids. And it's just, I think it takes like maybe an hour or 30 or 45 minutes for you to realize like how good it feels that, oh, I'm not looking at my phone right now, And I think those are the things that I look forward to the most. And it's because I'm not like chained to this addiction to my phone, whether it's social media or not. The phone, there's equal incentives for the actual phone itself to, to be addictive.
I really thought that, again, I'm going to throw Yang under the bus here, but I really thought that when Andrew Yang, no matter what happened to this campaign and it, ended, right? I really thought, okay, get off this Bird app, it's good. But my behavior had been so ingrained that, I was on Twitter night and day. And so I'm still, I've decreased some use, but I'm still there way too much I'm not exactly sure what benefit for me. So the behavior has really been ingrained. And so it took, a year, and it was now, my God, how do you delete this thing? Or why am I here? So I am, there is some good information sharing. There is good connection. Again, all of these tools can be used. Well, you think you can minimize it and have it be a tool again without it wanting something from you.
Right.
But it's just that, I actually wanted to say that I looked up, Shoshana Zuboff, the professor from Harvard that's on here. Right. So she has, and I watched it because it really, really is intriguing to me. This, she calls it surveillance, capitalism. And it's so insidious, and it's been going on for 20 years. So she has successfully, she doesn't use any Google products. She won't even look up a Google search. She'll have to ping off, all this VPN and everything's encrypted because that's how much, she's, as a matter of principle. So, she is hopeful that it's had a 20-year jump on us, right? So that tech, and that's the other thing about the film is that it surprised me, one, to see what was behind the curtain, but two, that they were all clamoring for regulation, which is not what you normally would hear from people in, corporate America, that they actually, at least these guys, who I kind of view them as whistleblowers, actually think regulation is absolutely where this needs to go. That was really unusual for me, and it's in sync with at least Professor Zuboff's view of surveillance capitalism, and it's hope that we're gonna need intervention here, because left to our own devices, I mean, you have, like you said, how many 50 professionals on the other end of the box, and you're our simple mind that they've figured us out. So we're gonna need some extraneous and help.
Absolutely. Yeah. The regulation is important. I thought it was really interesting how they talk about in the beginning, they saw these as tools to help humanity. And then it kind of ran away with it, especially when they talked about the likes. Like we thought, oh, that would make people feel good to say, I like this. But now, teenagers were needing to get more affirmation. And they didn't see where that was going. And absolutely, regulation is needed.
That was another part. I don't have a young, daughter, but I have sons. But the part with the middle schooler who, posted a photo of herself and then didn't get enough likes and instantly, or very soon after, deleted, and then used up all these filters and started getting the likes, and to take that one comment about, can your ears get any bigger or something, like that, for her to be just shattered and in the bathroom destroyed. And I just can't imagine, what this is doing to, because I'm a grown up, but and I'm so glad I did not have this when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine what that's doing to everyone's self-esteem at this point. And girls usually have it worse than boys, and so that was pretty heavy too.
Yeah. The statistics that they showed with the mental health and suicide.
I have some of those written down, and this is the part where Jonathan Haidt came in. He's a psychologist and was talking a little bit about this and about self-harm amongst teenagers. So I have some of the numbers, but before I give those, what I thought that was so interesting that he said was the people who were born in 1996, they are the first generation in history who got on social media as middle schoolers.
Right.
And that the girl in the dramatization, I would guess she's a preteen middle school.
Looks like middle school.
Yeah. And look at how it was affecting her in the dramatization. Think about what having a whole generation of people who Haidt says is more anxious, more depressed, more fragile, less comfortable taking risks.
Right.
Less of them have ever gone out on a date or done any kind of a romantic interaction.
Right.
What does that mean for our society in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years? And what does that mean for them as a society when a whole generation of people have lived this way, have been raised in that way?
I can't even imagine. I really can't. I mean, I think it's going to be a case study. For sure. I think we're going to see the effects of it, and I can't imagine they're going to be very good.
No. And I mean, the non-fatal self-harm, so hospitalization admissions for young teens, this is females particularly, and I'd love to hear about whether either one of you two have any ideas about why, particularly with girls, it's worse. But the increase from 2011 to now among 10 to 14-year-olds, so that would be your middle school age, or preteens, 189%. It went up. Hospitalizations for self-harm. Suicide rates for that age group went up 151%. So we're talking about a huge, and he said you can make the direct correlation to social media if you look at the numbers.
I think girls are vulnerable because girls grow up with the visual, right? We're judged by our looks. That's what you see in the media. That's what you see constantly portrayed. So now you have this way to filter out anything you don't like about yourself to create a different image. And it's a powerful tool that most of these young girls are going to fall prey to.
I agree. I mean, the beauty standard and all of this stuff, the filters, it's like apply the makeup for you, contour this and all of that stuff. It's girls, and kind of relieved I'm not raising any, Such a mess of messed up. I have it relatively easy in that regard. You know, other male issues for another podcast, another day. But you know, certainly as far as this goes, I'm blessed to escape kind of that part of it.
It seems like it's revealing even more of the inequality towards women. You know, in the sense that the expectations for how you look, being perfect, being beautiful all the time, having your hair done well all the time, wearing makeup. I mean, that there's certainly an inequality there. You know, I mean, if you think about what the expectations are, I've said this to guys, friends of mine before, like it takes them, 20 minutes to jump in the shower and put their clothes on. But if we're living up to like society standards, we better spend an hour on our hair and makeup before we go anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Wouldn't you say, no matter what era, there was always a big thing about the popular people, the popular girls. So here you have social media where you can really be popular. And so you're going to drive that contest to get those numbers up. And just like what Tyreen said earlier on that documentary, it was really sad to see how this girl was affected by a comment.
Right. And you know, the other thing about that is like how many nice comments, right? That you can just, great. But it takes just the one. It takes the one comment that I think it's human nature. You let that one impact you so much more. And she's, you know, in the bathroom just, you know, in tears, right? So that's so terrible. That's just, you know, of course, I don't understand why people need to be that one person, but, you know, and then the human nature of what that's all about. I mean, I can't imagine what it'd be like to be growing up in this day, really, truly. So.
Right. And then Tim Kendall makes a very powerful statement shortly after that segment. He says, these services are killing people and causing people to kill themselves. And that's where that, you know, illustration that we just discussed about the preteen with the ears starts and ends where we see what the data says about, you know, non-fatal self-harm and fatal self-harm.
Yeah.
And so the question, you know, I have for both of you is, you know, and I'll answer after you, but like, has this information, how have you like responded to it as far as like, you know, have you had any kind of like severe response of like, I just want to throw this away, like out the window, and society would be better off without any of it? Like, has that hit you at all, or has it been like a lot more moderate? How has that rolled for both of you guys?
Son, you want to go? Or
yeah, I'll go. I was going to say no. I didn't want to do that.
Okay.
But I think my ego, like I definitely realize, even though I'm not on some of these platforms, that I think, oh, I'm not one of those. I can control my behavior. You know, there is that me thinking that I know more than still, even though I have this knowledge. At the same time, which I know maybe we'll get into, the discussion would be, and I think Tyreen's addressed it. I mean, the phone is now kind of ubiquitous with our lifestyle. We use it for so many things. So it's really hard to pull away completely from that because, you know, it's how we communicate. It's the weather. It's just your daily thing. So it's like, how do I adapt to maybe not use certain apps, but still use the phone? So because getting rid of it completely, I don't see that as an option for me, at least.
Right. Yeah, I agree. There's the anger side of me that's wanted to chuck it all, but reality is, you know, my business is on there, my email's there, you know, it's still the quickest way to get news. You know, all of that, text message, you know, communicate with the people you really actually want to communicate with. I just can't see doing, I guess you could take off all the apps, but I don't see as that. I mean, I definitely feel, you know, slightly more empowered right now. Like, you know, so there's some helpful suggestions at the end of the film, right? Like, again, the notifications off. Don't actually click on what's suggested for you. Keep friends who have different opinions and fact check, right? So some things that I know that a lot of people aren't doing anymore, and you can see it with a divide of, you know, in the politics, right? And you see it all the time. You see how can you possibly look at it this way? Because there's two different worlds out there, right? It depends which bubble you're living in, and each side recites what they view as the world is absolute fact, clear as day. You know, how in the world can you not see it like this? And they are getting affirmed in their own bubble with, you know, everyone else who's mirroring that is in fact true. And that was actually a great quote that I remember in the film. I'm going to butcher it, but basically, if you can't get common facts, if there is not one shared of facts, there are no problems that we're going to be able to solve together.
Oh yeah, I love that. I'm glad you brought that up.
So powerful. I think I did tweet that one out because it was like, oh, this explains all of politics.
I think they said something to the effect of, if you can't agree on one truth,
yes,
the truths, yeah, that's saying, yeah, which is really powerful.
And, you know, of course, we're in the midst of, you know, well, we have now alternative facts and all of that, so we are in complete, you know, decay and of our society at this point. So it is alarming. It's very alarming, but at least watching this, you understand, you know, how that kind of, you know, some of that came about, because you really do. I mean, each side is completely clear of what the facts are.
Yeah, and you know, that was if I understand correctly who you're referring to, that was Rashida Richardson. She's an NYU adjunct professor of law. And he says, we are all simply operating on a different set of facts.
Yep.
And after a while, you can't or won't accept things that are contrary to your worldview.
Right.
And so that becomes a problem, because if we can't, like you said, agree on what the facts are, we can't solve any problems at all.
For sure. And I mean, and we're kind of seeing some of that, right? Absolute gridlock. No one's helping us, right? So you see that dysfunction and, you know, full glory.
And to think that a lot of that has to do with media companies, technology companies, who just, all they really want is to make money. So they're making a profit, regardless of the human cost.
Right.
Their priority is to make a profit. They don't care if they're dividing us.
Yeah.
Or say it this way, the system, the algorithm, whatever, doesn't care.
Right. So that is a distinction, right? Because I actually don't think that they were evil or intended evil, right? They created an algorithm to generate what views, people to stay on the site, etc. The byproduct was, you know, they learned what's going to get people to stay on the site. And it had, you know, different worldviews and fostering, you know, different truths and whatnot. So I think the algorithm did what it was supposed to do, which was get people to click, to stay, to engage, etc. But here's the result. So I don't have, you know, I don't, you know, put evil intent behind it. It's just gone, you know, it's gone amok. The result is bad. And again, I mean, really hit home that the people behind the curtain want regulation. That is really, really big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this reminds me, I have to throw some Fromm in here, of something that Eric Fromm wrote. And I'm not sure if it's in To Have or To Be, but he said something about how when technology was beginning, we were driven to use it, to implement it, to make it happen just because it was possible. And instead, he said, if we do that, if we decide to go that direction, which obviously we did, then humanity and human values aren't at the center of our society anymore. That is the thing that rules all. And so that is exactly kind of where we've gotten to, is a place where, like, we haven't, just because something is possible, we've done it. Not counting like, oh, what is that going to mean for A, B, C, D, E, F, G? How will that affect this? How will that react with that? And so that part is something I hope we can learn from and not do again in the future in other areas of our lives and other areas of society.
For sure.
I don't know if you guys, I'm not a big science fiction person, but part of this movie reminded me of science fiction when they showed the adolescent boy, right? They're pulling the levers behind the scenes. That was really bizarre to me, like the avatar and how they could influence, you know, what he's going to look at, when he's going to look at it. That was pretty powerful.
That was powerful imagery, especially when he says, do you think this is good for him? And the other two avatars are like,
who cares? Yeah, like
that's irrelevant, right? That's not part of the
Yeah. Yeah, and I think probably part of why we all loved Yang so much because he was like, hey, let's readjust some of the incentives here.
Yes. And I actually will pump my favorite Twitter guy because he's actually taking an active role in a proposition that's on the November 3rd election here, Prop 24 in California. He's actually the chairperson on the advisory board, and it's for California Privacy Act. So
wow.
It's at least for California, it's going to allow us to say, no, you can't share my data elsewhere. It actually lays out and gives an enforcement arm, so an actual group that can go after the wrongdoing. It has really strong protections for kids under 16, like triple penalties, like $7,500 a pop. So he's actually, because it's completely aligned with Data Dividend Project, and that he wants Californians should own their own data. So we can at least stop once you're on Facebook from sharing your data elsewhere. So it's called the they want to stop cross-context behavioral advertising. So yes, when you're on their site, they can see what you're doing. They can use it for whatever their purpose, but then can't be tracking you all over the places, which is what they're doing now, right? So like that if you Google something you want to buy, I don't know what it is, a sweater, the next thing you're on Facebook or Twitter, and there's an ad for, hey, said sweater, right? Yeah. So that is putting an end to that. And then the other really powerful part of this Prop 24 that's kind of unique is that if it can get passed, and it's got like over 80% support right now, so it's looking good, right? But we're not there yet. Is that if it gets passed, it's kind of got a one-way ratchet where any amendment to it could only be to continue to increase our privacy rights, which is pretty unique.
Wow.
So anyway, so
what's the website really quick? We're going to see if Victor can post this up on the screen.
Yeah. Do you know I don't know it right offhand. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
That's okay. Sorry to interrupt.
But if you look up Prop 24, anywhere, I mean, California Prop 24.
Right, they probably could put that in there.
California Privacy Rights and Enforcement Act. So it's actually a big deal. There's a pre-existing 2018 privacy law that's out there, but this is what's going to give it the teeth, the enforcement, kind of close up some loopholes. So it's a big deal. It'll be the first in the 2018's version was already the first in the nation. But the hope is, once you get a great model, and in California, it can go, nationwide. So that's something to look out for. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah.
And especially
Victor. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. So, and yep, there he is. There's Yang.
Hi, hello.
My addiction, sir.
It's all your fault, Andrew.
You know what? This is actually a really good thing. I mean, this is actually something part of the what can you do? How do you do what we just learned? Well, here's one measure, right? So you can at least have it stop going across platforms. For California, we start here, and hopefully those
the rest of the states,
so, and build a model for every other state to kind of follow.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Californians, for consumer privacy. Thank you, everybody who's doing that.
On 24.
Woo! Everybody in California, please vote yes on 24. And thank you to Yang for doing that. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and we are so glad that you came to hang out with us, Tyreen.
Oh my gosh,
Enjoyable. Thank you for having me. I know I'm not going to get to say hi to it's Kateri, right?
Kateri, yes.
Sorry, Kateri, but say hi. You guys enjoy. I will go off to dinner, and I'll catch the rest of your show, though. But thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes, we appreciate you. You're awesome. Keep up the great stuff. And
you guys do.
Yeah, maybe I'll see you at some point in the next.
I know.
Sometime.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye. Awesome. All right. That was good. That
was good to get another perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. I like to hear, obviously from other people. I like to hear from her too, because I've known her pretty well since the debates, and it's nice to get like a more like concrete, she thinks like a lawyer kind of thing. And so to hear that perspective, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
It was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting, it's funny. We make a plan for these things,
Sure.
but then we always hold that plan like, gently in our hand.
Right.
So to see what we end up
framework.
right, exactly. To see what we end up talking about is pretty interesting. So Sonia, what else about this film?
I'll tell you what else. I was just thinking when Tyreen was talking.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was pretty impactful is they talked about where's the existential threat. And they talked about some of the things that we potentially are looking at, like civil war, climate change, all these big items that are, foreboding in our minds here.
That brings me back to kind of what I wanted to say. And I just knew, we had to kind of shift gears with Tyreen. I would have said it with her here. But, I asked you the question, you guys, the question, did it like make you want to just like throw the thing out the window? And I'll say like that for me, I as I was been watching this thing, I'm just like, I wish we could just press a button and erase it all. Like could somebody just press a button and just erase Facebook, erase Twitter? Like I know that seems like very, very extreme.
Right.
But when you talk about, the existential element to this and where we're headed and how divided we already are.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's so scary. And I'm just like, okay, there's one sure way to just stop this where it is right now.
Right.
And it's hit delete,
And, yeah.
So I wonder what your thoughts are on that. And we'd love to hear from you right now. Anybody who's watching and listening.
Sure.
We're going to read your comments. So, share please. And then we're going to have Kateri on shortly. So, please, we want to read your comments, what have you, but what do you think about that, Sonia? Like the thought of just like somebody, whoever's at the helm of the control of all this shit, just press delete.
I mean, yeah, sure. That would be optimal if we could do that. It's funny because I try to remember a time when we weren't living in this, and it's hard to go back, maybe to my childhood or even, college, I guess, even where this wasn't so prevalent that we lived like this. And we're used to this lifestyle. But yeah, it would be great to be able to do that. I was going to say there was a comment earlier when we were talking. Someone said that they saw this for a while coming, and the individual who wrote said they were worried.
Wow.
Because I think there are some people out there that say, "Wow, there's something going on here."
Mm-hmm.
But you're going along. The masses are involved in these platforms, and we've utilized them as tools, like the documentary says. So how do we, bring back the clock, as you're saying, to erase it? And I think it's going to be leadership, regulation, looking at how we can use these tools not in such a damaging way for society.
Well, and I think, sometimes when we realize how much risk or how damaging something is, it's easy to do that all or nothing thinking and just be like, oh, we need to delete it, or, we need to throw it out the window. And the thing is that it's not a realistic solution. Right.
Right.
And so I think, what you're saying and where we're at, we're in a place where letting it go is it's not realistic. It's not an option, but learning how to live with it, learning how to live healthily. And also, like you're saying, the regulation, setting these boundaries, learning how to disengage in certain ways, turn off certain notifications, those types of things, I think, are going to be the best solution.
Make different choices. Do you remember in the film, this was a really good part where Tristan, he worked at Google, and he was sort of worried about this issue. And he'd go home at night, he said, and he would work on this program a presentation to explain, I'm worried. What are we doing here? And he sends it out to the company. Yeah. And everybody responds, yes, I'm worried too. I want to do something. And it goes to the top. And they don't even talk about it. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That tells you a lot.
Yes. And I mean, it may be the same reason as what we're talking about right now. How do you even tackle a problem this big? from the inside. And then you have the other motives, which are the profit motives, that are incredibly strong.
Incredibly strong, because that's what drives, it's like a religion, profit at all costs.
Right. And then you've got your, the folks who have invested in the company and
the shareholders.
Exactly. And it's like, it's not that easy actually to just hit delete on the program. Right. Another thing that really was alarming to me, I'm trying to remember the guy's name who said this, but I think it was Sandy Paraklis.
Yes. I remember
former operations manager, but he said there are only a few people who understand how the systems work, talking about the algorithms.
Right.
And even they don't necessarily understand what is going to happen with a particular piece of content. And so as humans, we've almost lost control over the systems because they're controlling the info that we see. They're controlling us more than we're controlling them. I mean, if there was ever a point on the side of delete it, press delete now, there's one. You know?
It almost makes you feel like you're in this, world where the machines take over the humans, right? That they get so powerful. It's to me, it's amazing that this is the reality, because it seems it's insidious. It seems like, oh, what's the big deal? But it is a big deal. This is definitely pulling back the curtain and showing us how little we have control over these behaviors.
And how much AI really is controlling a lot.
Exactly.
Already controlling a lot. And of course, I mean, I think they make mention of this in the film, but, most of us would think like, oh, if robots take over, they're going to look like these red-eyed, metal things.
They show that, right.
No, it's not that obvious, people. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, and right at that part, I think I'm going to tell you a quote that I wrote down. It says, it's about the ability of technology to bring out the worst in society. It's not about the ability, of technology to bring out the worst in society. And the worst in society is the existential threat. It's about the fact that,
oh my God,
not so much technology. What they're saying is that it brings out the worst in society, and that's the existential threat.
Right. Well, and it facilitates the spread of the worst of society in such a way that it could be like Pizzagate.
Yes, that was another thing that was crazy. They showed that.
Amazing. And the misinformation and the non-information spreading faster than the real information. That's scary.
Yeah, like 6 times more. And I think Tyreen made a good point with the facts. It's really interesting if you're in that bubble where you have a certain set of facts and you really believe those facts. I get that. And then you're in the other bubble. How do you even come to an agreement? Because you're living in 2 different realities.
That's the most ominous thing to me. And I think, it may be a good time if we bring Kateri in, because this was kind of like the biggest thing that popped out to her. But the most ominous thing to me about that is like, how do we fix it? How do we fix this? If it's not the delete button, and I'm not saying I'm advocating for the delete button, but I'm saying if it's not that, what is it? Because if we're headed towards civil war, and if we're in a place where everybody's just living in their own bubble, how are we going to right this ship?
That's a good question. I hear you.
It's scary. Well, on that note, maybe Kateri has all the answers.
I hope
so. There she is. You're going to save the world, aren't you, Kateri?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome. Don't know you. So great to be here with Lacey and Sonia, and awesome conversation so far. I'm like, I hope I have things to add. And yeah, that's kind of for those of you who don't know, I'm not like super active on Twitter, but I co-run the book club with Megan. Shout out to Megan. And one of our kind of theories with that is like, can a book club help save the world?
Yes, yes, it can.
Yes.
It's on our minds for sure. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So what was it particularly on this theme that really struck you from the film?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, before I had heard from you, Lacey, was having a conversation about this film with a coworker, and like literally the like little detail, and I think you have brought it up already, but the little detail that like stood out to me was the Google search. You know, I can go into I live in California. I can go into Google and I'm probably going to get climate change is real or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But apparently other parts of the country, that's not the case. And it could be climate change is a hoax or something like that. And I have people close to me who are not so convinced about climate change. And, you know, I'm no expert on it. I'm certainly trying to learn more. But it's so interesting to try to engage in actual conversation when you're like, you feel like you're like, you know, like if like the world cracks and you're like on each side of the crack and you're just like, there's something wrong here. Like, how do we do this? You know, like that's that like really unsettling feeling I get when I try to like engage in some of these conversations. So yeah, the idea of truth, like one of the quotes is like, if we don't have one idea of truth, or not one idea of truth, but like one truth, actual real truth, how are we going to be a country that functions?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think about like some members of my family that I love and, you know, are dear to me. And we don't think the same, you know, on certain things. And it's just like, it's almost to the point where we just don't need to go there because it's going to end up contentious if certain people can't, in certain ways, and myself included, can't go through the conversation without being able to disagree, which in general, I don't think we're very good at that in this country anyway. And I think, you know, let's take that to a more personal level. We're seeing the world split, right? Because we can't agree on what the facts are. Well, how does that affect us on a personal level? Our families are ripped apart. And, you know, you've got this family member believes in, you know, theory A and this one B, and they can't even have a conversation with each other. I mean, I don't know. I've seen it on like dating sites that I'm on. I'm like, they're like, if you like Trump, don't swipe right. You know what I'm saying? It's
right.
So I'm surely we've never been this divided. Surely.
You know what's kind of sad hearing Lacey you talk about this is one of the reasons that maybe you guys do this on your book club. What I love about reading books and I love talking to Lacey is we get into deep conversations or philosophical. And when you have this issue, like with family, what do you talk about? Like the weather, where did you buy at the mall? It gets, you know, you want to have, at least I want to have a deeper conversation. Yeah. So it's challenging if you're on these completely different spectrums.
True.
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of bring that full circle, like there's that wonderful saying of like, no one reads the same book twice, or, you know, like you don't read the same book twice and no one reads the same book, but that's okay because it is the same book, you know, whereas like you were talking about the Wikipedia site being different, you know, that can be a really beautiful thing when you have this like shared idea, but then you have so many different perspectives that enrich those ideas.
Right.
But when it's not one idea, and then it just devolves into like chaos essentially. And then also to like what you were saying, Lacey, you know, I think a big part of that, what's so painful about those divisions is that we really like, it really skews us towards not seeing people's humanity, you know, like
very good.
Why there's so much like malicious feelings towards people who support Trump. And essentially like what I'm saying is like, I have some people that are close to me that I love deeply, you know, you see that, you just see it in, you know, the subtweet or whatever, right? Or just the way people say something, you know, like over dinner. It's like, there's like this sense of like, you're not fully human, or, you know, there's something wrong with your humanity. And that's dark. Like, that's not the direction we want to go.
it puts us in those blue and red boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just
like that graph they showed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that there's, I think obviously we've all supported Andrew Yang in his presidential run, and I think we can look to the makeup of the people who supported him to see this truth that we actually are all more similar than we are alike. We actually do all want the same thing. Generally speaking, it's easy to nitpick over little things, but we're all more alike than we are different. And the sad part is that the technology is now in a position of power, and it's elevated to a point where like it's easy to forget that. It's actually like cleaner and clearer for everyone to be like, you're in this camp and I'm in that camp. It's us versus you, and you're the bad guy and I'm the bad guy. And you're right, Kateri. It takes away from the simple fact that we're all humans. It doesn't matter what color we are. It doesn't matter what country we live in. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter what gender we are, what sexual orientation we're just human beings. We have the same nature. So that means we have the same needs and the same wants as the guy in Africa or in Spain or wherever.
Yeah, leave it to Kateri to think of a poop joke. We all poop. Yeah.
Oh my
Essentially.
God. When did you watch the film, and did you watch it with friends, or how did you find out about it?
Yeah, well, it was Andrew Yang, and I like tweeted about it on the book club and was like, got homework, Yang gang. Okay. And I watched it with my boyfriend, and we usually watch something like with dinner. And he is a teacher at he teaches 7th through 12th, but he's like gonna try. They actually do a digital. I don't know if it's digital education, but I think it's more along the sides of what the social dilemma is. And so he's going to recommend that they watch it for his,
that's awesome.
His students, the upper school. Yeah. So yeah, we both were very consumed by it. And I've now watched it twice because I was like, and it's true. Like I often read things twice. You get so much more out of something when you, I teach dance, and I like to say, you got to give it time to marinate,
oh, yeah,
so it's you let the idea sort of get in your brain and marinate. And then when you watch it again, you also notice things that you didn't catch the first time. And
yes,
I think you have a deeper understanding of all of the ideas. So yeah, I recommend watching it twice.
Your boyfriend teaches middle school then too, right? You're saying 7th to 12th, or what was the age?
Yeah. Actually, he was teaching 5 through 12, small school. So this year he's teaching 7 through 12.
And what's the policy there with phones, with cell phones?
It's a private school, so they're really they're really casual. It's really not I think there's a joke saying if you have a bag of Doritos and a laptop, it's more likely that the bag of Doritos is going to get stolen. So they're kind of everywhere. Yeah. And he teaches music, so he doesn't have to struggle as much as I think other. But he does a little bit. He definitely does. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking up song lyrics," and he's like, "You know those song lyrics,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Has he ever mentioned anything about seeing the signs of addiction to phones at school? I don't know. Maybe you can't talk about that because that's private. But I wonder if teachers see that too,
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's something that you're definitely seeing where the older generations are starting to feel quite overwhelmed, I think. And it's affecting them kind of mentally, where they're feeling this sense of responsibility and trying to cultivate these spaces of actual growth and learning. And it's all they care about is these screens. So yeah, I think, and that kind of, I think just gets back to the whole idea of what is that balance? Where do you draw the line? What's the barriers or boundaries that you draw? And yeah, luckily I teach dance, so I really don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's hard. It's tricky.
And I was thinking about the parent in the film, how it would be hard. She says, well, all her friends have phones, everybody in the school. So then if you're the one child that doesn't, right? So do you feel left out? So it's balancing that, you know,
I know. I'm not even a parent, and I felt like empathy with her a little bit. I mean, I have a sibling who's a girl who's 8 years younger than me.
Oh, okay.
So she was that generation, essentially. So I watched her go through that, and definitely struggled to a certain extent, you know, like being on Snapchat and stuff. To me, like that, it is. I like just made the cutoff.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get on social. I think I had Facebook in high school, but it was not the same. And then, I mean, in junior high, I didn't have a smartphone, and I definitely didn't have a smartphone till maybe after high school. So I like just made the cutoff. But then I'm seeing my younger sister go through school, and it's totally different. And it's like even just panicking of like needing to have this phone, and like the extents to which like I laughed, but it was like also like a dark laugh. Like I felt this like gut feeling that was terrible when she smashes the box to get in, because I was like, I could kind of see my sister doing that. Like, not to throw her under the bus or anything, but
I think
like,
it's common. I think that a lot of people would do that.
Yeah. I was going to say that one of the things I wrote down is about my own personal experience is like, I feel driven to the phone. Like, I feel like, you know, it really feels kind of like this uncontrollable drive, which kind of goes back to the way they built it. Right. But I do feel that. I feel that drive to go to the phone. And you know, it really is playing on our vulnerability. You know, the what you were saying about, or I think Tyreen said about how they're like, do you think it's good for him? And they're like, no, like whatever, we don't care. And that's the thing that's scary too, is like we're playing on your own vulnerabilities, period.
Yeah, I wanted to ask both of you. It's a question I had now that Lacey brought it up, and I'm thinking about it. If you don't have a phone, here's what I think is, how do you connect with people? Because that's kind of our connection right now, right? If they take away your social stuff, I mean, somebody texts you, your friend, you know, let's go do something, or you want to connect. This is just like the world we're living in.
Yeah.
Well, what would you do without that phone?
I
mean, like I still have memories of the dial-up phone.
I do too. Yeah.
I still have my like parents' landline memorized, which doesn't exist anymore, but I still have it memorized, and I still have my best friend's landline memorized. So like it was some time recently that I like tested myself, and I was like, yep. So like, you know, there's been this progression, and there's this like, I think there's this sense for pretty much everybody, even for my parents. Like my dad is super on Facebook, and he was talking to me last time I was visiting about how like, I think I had pointed something out to him, and it made him realize, yeah, you know, every time I post something, I go in and I check to see who's liked it. And like, this is a 63-year-old man, you know, like we're talking about like being concerned about girls. And I'm like hearing my dad say this, like, I'm not on Facebook anymore, like largely for that reason. So I think it's hazy for everyone to like really think about like, where did we cross that boundary? Oh, yeah. Hey, boys.
Thank you, boys. He says, I love this combo. I like this combo too. I really do.
Yeah, I think Lacey and I have talked about this. You'd have to almost live like in a commune or in a community where you get to see people and stuff every day. Otherwise, how are you going to be connected?
Yeah. Well, that kind of, we probably won't have an answer to that. I think that kind of brings me to one of the ideas I had as far as like things we could do. So, or how are we going to do it? We're going to have to hold some people accountable. But, I think it's just like, can't these things actually be awesome? Like, can't something like Facebook, like actually, obviously there's a lot that needs to happen before we get there. For instance, I think the kind of consensus with the documentary was like, it's the business model, like all of these things are being done for profit. So it's like, I might be, shooting in the dark. Like this might be completely too positive thinking or whatever, but you know, like we already know that these things can have good benefits. So it's like, I mean, you guys are rethinking humanity. Like, you know,
Right,
like, can people like us, like, come up with ideas for how like these things can like actually work for us, and actually add value.
Like the organ donors, like the connection for positive, you know, movement in society.
I mean, it makes me think of, and if you've read, you know, Andrew Yang's book, that was the first time I'd been introduced to the idea of time banking, which you would need, or it's the way it's been done, as far as I know, is used like app technology essentially to make it work. So, you know, I think that there's, I'm going to plug the book club a little bit. We read this book in August, if you're interested in climate change, called The Future Earth. And one of the Future Earth by Eric Holthaus. And one of the things that he, like, kind of philosophical ideas that he used to base a lot of his argument on was this idea of an imaginary. I don't know if that's something you've been introduced to in your philosophy adventures, but it was new to me. And so it's basically just the idea of like, we don't know what we don't know. You know, like, and also like the idea of like the Truman Show, and what was the other one that you mentioned? I don't know, but the idea, it was mentioned in the documentary, but the idea of the Truman Show is like, we just know what our reality, like what we have. And so, you know, so his argument was like, for climate change is like, we need a new imaginary. We need this idea of a world that doesn't quite exist yet, and we have to figure it out, is like the caveat, you know. And so I think, you know, it's fair to say maybe these apps could be a part of that, but obviously there's just an immense amount of work that's going to need to happen before. So yeah, I'm voting yes on Prop 24 in California.
Yes, hell yes. You know, I think it goes back to a lot of the principle that Andrew used on the campaign on his platform, which is readjusting the incentives. So I love what you're saying, Kateri, because you're saying, hey, we can see the negative right now, right? However, our job and the best way to spend our time is to find the solutions. And again, the thing we love about Yang, it's finding solutions and not getting overwhelmed by the problem, although it's overwhelming, but finding the solution. So what are the solutions? And so I think that's awesome. And like realigning the incentives to be to where this positively affects our humanity, and getting the best and brightest minds around that, and making that a cause and an important, something that's important, instead of, you know, otherwise. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm down for that.
Let's
do that.
I like the idea of the imaginary, and I definitely am going to check out the book. That fits right along our thinking.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful book and it's short, so I highly recommend it.
Oh, cool.
And you mentioned also something to me earlier today about community and community spaces as a potential solution.
Yeah. So I think my kind of whole line of thinking there is like, you know, the documentary starts with everyone being asked the same question of like, what is the problem? And like, they don't really have an answer. And then it's one of the gentlemen, I forget his name, he's not like brought up too often, but at the end he's like, it's just the business model. We just need a new business model, like I was saying a second ago. You know, and I think as Yang, we can really kind of see why he's right. And so they were like, yeah, we want regulation. And you guys were talking about earlier how it's just so striking that is the consensus among all of these people who are behind the curtain. So I 100% agree with that. I think that's pretty much just got to be the first step, right? Like we just need these barriers that they cannot cross. But I wonder if that's like systemic enough too, you know, like how, like we still at the end of the day, like we're still kind of like the users of these platforms, even if like we're not being taken advantage of, we're still there. So yeah, I think investing in education, investing in real community spaces. It's hard to hate someone. Actually, this is a thought from the interview we did yesterday with the authors of our book for this month, which is called Union. and we were asking about how we can be less divided. And they were saying, it's hard to hate someone when they're right in front of you.
Mhm.
You have to reckon with their like basic humanity.
Yeah.
So, if you're someone who never interacts with someone from a different viewpoint, and you're only on social media and you're in that bubble that we all pretty much fall into, it's like really hard you have to really cultivate that. But then you step into an actual space where you can't just like mute someone who has a different viewpoint from you, and you're forced to have a conversation with them. Might make you realize that, like there's some things you didn't think about, or there's just certain things that you weren't able to communicate.
Right.
So yeah, I think investing in people, investing in real spaces, and our ability to be educated, reason, have logic and deductive reasoning and critical thinking and all of those fancy things that we really all should be doing. I think those are other things we can do as well that might help in a lot of ways, but help in this way as well.
Sonia, I don't want to cut you here, but I'll just say this really quick. I love, Sonia and I talk a lot about community and community spaces and communal living, and that's a key. And I think about like what happens when we're not with people, when we're not in a community situation. What do we end up doing? We get on our phone, typically. Like when you're alone, you're a million times more likely to be on your phone than you are if you're with people. And so what's hitting me as you're talking is just like how much more important community and communal spaces and even communal living can be in this moment to help pull us away from our devices and to bring us back into a moment where like we're face to face with other human beings.
Absolutely. So, I was just thinking when you're talking, this is totally out there, doing the imaginary. I'm thinking everything that we think of is always monetized. What if the app, like for a teenager, you had to go out and do a volunteer thing, and then you get time on your app, that it's connected with maybe your interaction in a community. So then your skills grow with, talking and conversing and whatever you do. And then, it's not just the digital device. You're also having to interact, but somehow, but I'm just brainstorming. What are the things we could do that would be different than what we're doing now?
Yeah. I mean, that'd be great to just have a bunch of people start thinking along those lines. And
kind of like what you were saying that Yang talked about, I think, in his book. So we have to kind of go outside of the boundaries of what our typical mindset is.
And I would say
definitely.
This is where it makes sense to spend money as a government on this type of thought process and information and research. How can we use the tools that we have to bring about the kind of quality of life and well-being that we want and need as a society? Where's the budget for that shit? Because let me tell you something. Yang presidency will have a budget for that shit. I promise. I know it will.
Especially if we can get him in the technology office.
Hopefully, definitely. Going back to the point about the book that you read, Union, you had the authors on there, and this divide. One of the things that they've studied is with the neo-Nazis, the individuals that are really extreme. The way that change has come about, like in those worlds, is when they're connected, when they start to associate with someone who's of a different mindset, and they actually get to know that individual. So I think that's huge. The point you make is, how do you hate someone when you're face to face with another human being? And that's what we're not having with our devices. We're just, seeing like a post online or a Republican or Democrat or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's come out of COVID, I think, is more of this, right? Is more of like, okay, like the only way we can like have a wider social circle and actually like have a conversation is doing stuff like this, like on Zoom and here. And I know we're all like god awful tired of it at the same time, but hopefully it's like kind of amended online spaces a little bit and and more podcasts and stuff like that have just maybe become more more of a thing, and we can hopefully keep it the way it is and have it continue to be this more like egalitarian, freeform kind of spaces. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, before we let you go, will you just tell us a little bit about the book club? Just plug the book, say whatever you want about the book club, obviously. Just tell us about, and then like what book you guys are reading now and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Especially I think it's over there. Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So the book club is YG Book Club. We also have an Instagram, which we're gonna hopefully start like posting more in there soon. So it's actually Yang Gang Book Club on Instagram. It just doesn't fit on Twitter. But the biggest thing is, I would say, other than that, is actually YouTube, because that is where we actually have our book club discussions. So our book for this month is Union, subtitle A Democrat, a Republican, and a Search for Common Ground. So it's about, or it's like a memoir by the two authors who are best friends, but also one is a Republican and one is a Democrat. And they meet like right before Trump's election and start going on road trips. And so it's like part friendship memoir with like politics thrown in there, part like travel memoir, and you get to like visit a ton of national parks and cities. Cool. They also, do a great job of interviewing people. Oh, this is great. Thank you. They also do a great job of interviewing people from all over the country as well. So it's like this whole tapestry of places and ideas and opinions, and it's really well written. So, and it was great to have them on, and they had so many wonderful things to say. Cool. So we are really trying to have the authors on. I guess I'll just speak really quick to The Future Earth by Eric Holthouse. We didn't even have like a proper book club discussion for that. We just had him on for the discussion, because that was one where like, we just want the expert to talk to us. And so that was great. And that whole book is beautiful because it marries like social justice with climate change.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I am so glad we picked it. And it also writes how we solve climate change as if it were a history. It's really
wow.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
And we've had Scott Santons on when we let him pick a book. So it's called The Tyranny of Kindness by Teresa Finiciello, and she came on, which was amazing. And they had like never, and this was like the book that got him kind of interested in UBI, and they had never met before. And we just like sat back and watched it and had this whole conversation. Like, we've done some really, really cool things. So we're really excited. We haven't yet announced the book for October, but we will. Oh, tomorrow. We're going to announce it tomorrow. Nice. And it's our first fun book, and it involves zombies. So we're gonna have some fun. Yeah. Zombies, but also like Reconstruction era America. So
cool.
So yeah, our goal that we're working towards once we get into a better climate is to have Yang Gang really uniting around on the Twitter page, but like creating IRL chapters of the book club, so you can kind of keep your community together, and we can maybe take some of the ideas that we get from all the different books we read, and find some sort of action to take from there, even if it's just helping to spread ideas. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and we're gonna do lots of stuff. Also, DM us if you want to do a takeover, because those have been popular. Yeah. Nice. So Andrew likes them. It's really cool. He like retweets them.
Cool.
He's the best, is he not? He's just the best.
He's just the best.
But you guys are awesome too, and thank you for what you're doing. I mean, me and Sonia both, we love books. So
so
you should definitely do a takeover. Even Sonia, even if though you're not on Twitter, you can just send us video.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Well, we need to. Sonia has some real good recommendations. But yes,
I want to hear those.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. You're awesome. Keep up the great work. We appreciate, how you are perpetuating ideas. They really do change the world. So thank you, and to you and Megan, and all the best. Stay safe out there in California.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I'll catch you guys on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
See you later. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wow.
Great. Wow.
Yeah, I could talk to her forever because she's into the books.
Yes, right? Oh my gosh. So one thing before we kind of transition to our last little segment is that, we were talking about solutions and like how we might adjust our own independent like daily behavior in light of all this information. And one thing I thought about was today actually was, okay, what if I went and got a old flip phone,
Right.
had my phone number on the phone, and then I kept my actual smartphone and then I like checked it like 3 times a day or something.
Yeah.
And then I told people like, if you need to get in touch with me in an emergency, call me or send me a text on the like old,
Phone,
no full keyboard kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that might work, but then I don't know.
That's an idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea if you can even still get those phones.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's challenging right now. I mean, an idea would be, I guess, for someone to limit usage, maybe delete some apps that you don't use. A lot of it, but even they talk about it in the film, I think a lot of it is kind of is having, I guess, some degree of discipline, maybe to divide, or maybe giving yourself, not being too hard on yourself, but just saying, I'm not going to be on my phone for a few hours,
Yeah.
I think it has to be sort of like a gradual thing. That's how addiction is. I mean, it's probably pretty hard to go from using it all the time to completely not.
True. And I would say too, like maybe the first place to start would be to say to yourself, okay, when I'm with other people, if I'm out and I'm like having dinner with somebody, or if I have a friend over or whatever, of course, we're living in a very different world now, but I'm just generalizing here. I'm going to like keep it in my purse, or I'm not going to look at it, or I'm like going to allow myself to look at it like once, unless, I don't know, you put it on the like, it rings only when certain people call you, like, whatever. Associating a ring to someone who is like an emergency that you would take a call for, you would be interrupted for. So I don't know, that might be a good place to start.
Well, I'll turn my phone off, but here's the problem. I don't have a problem with turning it off, but I've noticed when people are trying to reach me, family members, for example, my mother will say, how come you're not answering your phone? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I literally have to have my phone on 24/7. So I'm okay with turning it off, I think. But the hard thing is what Tyreen says, she uses it for everything, and so do I. So it's kind of a tool that you use for other things, not just phone calls. And so, it's you're going to need some really bright minds to get behind the platforms, and you need good leadership, I think, ethical leadership to start to move this in another direction. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think the thing that's ironic and fitting at the same time is just, how much this can be tied back to what we discuss on the podcast. The having mode, the being mode, and how the having mode of existence is rooted and grounded in kind of greed and having things. And really, if you boil this whole thing down, it's about, the business model, as we already stated, but it's about profit, and it's about it's about greed, right? And so this, we could even tie back to the having and the being modes of existence and the clash between the two.
Absolutely. What I think also impacted me, probably because you and I have talked a lot about on this, and I'm working towards like trying to do meditation, trying to be more in the moment. Watching this documentary shows me how it doesn't allow you to live in the moment. You're living in this, this world that is not real. And that made an impact on me. So I think something that would come out of this for me is really trying to be present and to follow from is being, which is a challenge, in our world. But this, if there was not a time that's calling for this, is now. this is the moment
Yeah.
to really follow his timely wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's certainly time to shift and to start thinking differently, and to rethink, how we're doing humanity.
Right. I mean, this is affecting all of our society, but I think the way change is made, it can be overwhelming, but I think you have little pockets. And this is where this film helps, is the knowledge and little changes, and within the world you start to see differences. It's got to start somewhere, right?
Right. Absolutely. And I think, we've seen the first step, which is the actual film. And I'm so thankful, and I hope that it stays in the top 10 on Netflix for as long as possible, because it's so important.
The more people that know or become educated, hopefully that it will impact where we're heading towards. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I am very happy that we did this. What do you think, Sonia?
Oh, it's awesome. I loved having Tyreen and Katari, right?
Kateri.
Kateri. Okay. I loved having both of them on talking about the film. And if there are people out there who haven't seen it, please go see it.
Yes.
It's really worth your time. It's very engaging. It's done really well. Mm-hmm. And what I like is it's not really there's not one side. It's giving you the reality of these.
That's so true. That's so true. It's not polarizing at all. Yeah, please watch it. Have conversations about it. Think about how you might, change your life in a way that ultimately you don't allow profit models to mold your behavior and shape and change who you are and what you're thinking. That, I think, is the crux of what I was like, damn, that's not cool. You're changing me. You're changing who I think, how I think, and who I am. And so, give yourself some time and space. I would invite you all to give yourself some time and space to think about this and to, read about it. This book is a great book on the same topic, Reclaiming Conversation by Sherry Turkle, similar. But find other resources. I'm sure, the Yang Gang Book Club would have some suggestions for us too. But
and I'm going to plug Data Dividend Project. They need to look that up, because anybody who's interested, you can sign up and to not have your data be just given away.
Data Dividend Project is huge. Of course, if you're in California, Prop 24, vote yes. And in any way that you can support, of course, even Humanity Forward, one of their main pillars and goals is data as a property right and these things. Of course, I'm sure Center for Humane Technology is a good place that you can go to find some more information. So thank you all for being with us. We appreciate you. Much love. Please take care, and we'll have another episode out soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.